1.5 feet of snow. America is listening to Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
A carbon monoxide leak at an Ohio hotel leaves several guests hospitalized.
Investigators are working to figure out what exactly caused that carbon monoxide leak that sickened more than a dozen adults and children in an Ohio hotel. Authorities tell us this all happened at a Hampton Inn in Marysville, Ohio, a small town about 30 miles northwest of Columbus. Police say calls started rolling in Saturday evening about what was later confirmed to be a carbon monoxide leak. The first concerning a 2-year-old girl who was found unconscious in or near a pool. Not long after, police say more calls started coming in from that same hotel, with callers reporting people having symptoms of dizziness, burning sensation in the throat, and losing consciousness.
Fox's Charles Watts and 14 guests at the hotel were hospitalized, including 6 children. Meantime, the investigation continues into a 6-vehicle crash that killed 9 people Saturday in North Las Vegas, Nevada. There's still no word, though, on whether a driver was impaired while speeding through a red light and causing the collision. That driver and a passenger were among those killed. The pandemic and a winter storm in the Northeast making for a quiet weekend at the movie box office.
Spider-Man No Way Home continues to spin its web over the box office.
We're flying out into the darkness to fight ghosts.
The Sony Pictures Marvel blockbuster surpassing studio expectations with $11 million in ticket sales in its 7th weekend of release. Scream holds on to 2nd place on the weekend charts. Paramount's Thriller selling 7.4 million in tickets during its 3rd weekend in theaters. Universal's Sing 2 in the number 3 spot with 4.8 million in ticket sales. Kathleen Maloney, Fox News.
I'm Paul Stevens, and this is Fox News.
Half a day. This is Clara Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
When's the last time you looked at your homeowner's insurance?
An easily overlooked part of covering our home is what's inside of it. Over time, we buy things we don't want to lose, but don't update our contents coverage. The smart thing to do is get the answers and level up our insurance to make sure we're totally protected.
That's the Insurance Extra Point. Get out there and make something good happen today by calling Guahan Insurance Services at 475-1162 or visit us at the Camacho Landmark Center in Tamuning.
The Eat Fresh Refresh goes on at Subway. You've tried the Cali Fresh steak. Now you can enjoy the Cali Fresh turkey. One of only 2 Cali Fresh subs. The Cali Fresh turkey is packed with deli-thin, oven-roasted turkey piled high on a bed of hickory smoked bacon, smashed avocado, and fresh mozzarella. Crafted for premium freshness, the Cali Fresh turkey is made on freshly baked, hearty, multi-grain bread with your choice of fresh veggies, hand-sliced daily in restaurants. Treat yourself to a Cali Fresh turkey today. Subway. Eat fresh.
Guam Auto Spot has the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage starting at $127 per paycheck. 0 down. Call 671-478-AUTO to take a test drive or get pre-approved online at GuamAutospot.com.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Emphatic enough, Jose?
That was kind of aggressive, Bob.
Yeah, well, when you're talking about something as important as the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution, probably necessary to be a little bit aggressive because there are those out there that would take it away from us. Not if we have anything to say about it here on Tall Tales, however. So we're starting a brand new week here on Tall Tales. Jose and I couldn't be happier. It's 7 minutes after 4. We got the rest of the day. 4 more whole days of Tall Tales interacting with our tailgaters, the international radio listening audience. It doesn't get any better than that. Moving right into Zemi Ikotny. And once again, I have to debunk a myth that I've debunked 100 times so far. It's as strong as the one, when the legislature did away with Camarinde, we had Typhoon Pongsonghua. It's that strong. And here's the title of the editorial. Our view: have political parties hold primary election or use nonpartisan blanket primary. On Friday, senators passed Bill 173, which would cancel the primary election for the legislature, governor, delegate, mayor, vice mayor, public auditor, or attorney general if there aren't more candidates than seats available. Now, we've been through this a couple of times back and forth, and I think it was either 2002, 2004. One of the parties in the legislative primary only had 14 candidates, but we had the primary anyhow. Now, you might think that anyone who's paying attention would say, do away with that. Well, here's something that these guys didn't think about, and probably others don't think about either, and that is that the campaign finance limit allow each voter to donate $1,000 per candidate per election. So even if it's a rump primary, you can still collect $1,000 from a donor.
So this helps incumbents and rich folk.
It does. Yeah, it does. And
I can see why they want to get rid of it.
Yeah. And so, if you start out that way, then you could collect $2,000 from the get-go because for sure you're going to be in 2 different elections. The primary, which you can't lose, and the general, to which you will advance to. So they've cleaned it up now. So if there are 15 seats available in the legislature and only 15 candidates for a particular party, there will be no primary for that party. That makes sense. Yeah. And the same with the other offices. And we've gone back and forth on this a couple of times. Okay, now, but the bigger question is whether the government shall hold or pay for any primary election. And the answer to that question is if you want to have a primary election. Now, I'll go through this whole thing. There's not going to be a blue star for you guys here today. I'll go through it, and then I'll tell you what the actual mechanics of primary elections are and why you would want to keep primary elections if you do. The whole purpose of a primary election is to reduce the number of Democrats and Republicans for the general election ballot, and that makes it a party election. Not necessarily so. That is not that is not the whole purpose of a primary election. Taxpayers shouldn't have to shoulder the cost of deciding which members of political parties move on to the general election. That's the responsibility of the political parties, and they should be footing the bill. Now, I'm going to get a little ahead of myself here, and we'll talk about history. Primary elections came along at about the turn of the last century, and believe it or not, it was the progressives in the United States that advanced partisan primaries. There are three progressive reform measures: initiative, referendum, recall, direct election of senators, and primary elections. Direct election of senators up until I can't remember when it was, which amendment to the Constitution it was. I got to take a look here. When we did away with, when we went to direct election of senators. Yeah, the 17th Amendment, 1913. Up until 1913, the legislatures of each of the states chose the senators for that particular state. A system that I think we should have kept, because it was, again, one of the benchmarks of federalism. You would know for sure, no matter what, there'd be two people in the upper house that would advance the interest of your state. So we did away with that in 1913. That was one of the reform initiatives. A second reform initiative was referendum, initiative, referendum, and recall. Initiative and referendum, I think we understand. Recall, we also have recall elections here. These are mechanisms to introduce a degree of democracy into our representative democracy that's otherwise not there. Now, we have initiative and referendum on the books here, but, you know, we really don't like it. We, being the 14, 15 people in the legislature, they've made it so hard to do a voter initiative as to make it almost impossible. Now, I at one time in my political maturation thought, you know, legislation is too important for amateurs. We shouldn't have initiatives. We shouldn't enact laws by initiative. We should leave that up to the legislature. I'm not so sure anymore. I think that perhaps, I think we would be better served with initiatives because what we have here in the island, we've turned our representative democracy into a club. And if you're a member of the club, you can kind of live off the government most of your working life, either as an elected or an appointed official. And much of the government is structured toward the maintenance of that club. Okay, the third progressive initiative was primary elections. We got the secret ballot just about at the turn of the century. At the end of the 1800s, we went from somebody walking into the polls and handing in colored pieces of paper for his choice of candidates, which wasn't secret, which made it really easy to hand out political patronage. It's a little bit, the story's a little longer than that, but if you ever wondered why so many cops in New York City are Irish, it kind of goes back to that. Yeah, so we went with secret ballot, which was a progressive initiative, but the complaint was the parties choose the candidates. So although we get to go to the polls and vote for a candidate, we're only voting for the people that they want, not the people that we want. It's just the people that the party bosses want. Now, if you're an old-time Pogo reader, you remember Pogo and the smoke-filled room? The smoke-filled room was the room where the party bosses got together over brandy, bourbons, and big fat smoky cigars and decided who the party's candidates would be for each particular election. The party would choose, they would go on the general election ballot, and everybody on the general election ballot owed fealty to the party bosses. Otherwise, he wouldn't be on the ballot. Folks like Boss Tweed, Roscoe Conklin, guys like that. The greatest era of political cartoons ever. So the progressives' approach to breaking this stranglehold on the electoral process by party bosses was to say, we're going to have partisan primaries. And anybody who is qualified can get on that primary ballot. And if the people want him, he'll go to the general election, which to me still seems like a good idea. Now, if we didn't have the partisan primary here, you wouldn't have the parties running the primaries. You just wouldn't have primaries. That's all. We didn't have primary elections here until 1970. Each party chose its own candidates, and each party had its own convention. And I don't remember ever visiting one of the conventions and asked for a ticket into the smoke-filled room, but I'm sure, back in the 60s, you could smoke everywhere, right? So the way you got on the ballot was being loyal to your political party. In 1970, we elected our first governor. And on the Democrat side, we had three teams. We had the Areola team, the Berdallo team, and the Manuel Guerrero team. And we had only, of course, one Republican, Carlos Camacho, the last appointed governor. So the politicians weren't able to figure out a good way to choose the party candidate for governor. So they dropped back 10 yards behind the line of scrimmage and punted. And when the ball went into the air, it turned into a primary election. So we had a primary election for the gubernatorial race and for senators. That's why we have a primary election. If we didn't have a primary election, you can't mandate that the parties have a primary election. The reason we have a primary election is it is a government function. And because it's a government function, it can be a condition precedent to the general election ballot. But if we didn't have it, we'd go back to the old days, something I do not want to see. I don't want the party bosses choosing the candidates that advance to the general election. Had that been the case, I suspect there would have never been an Angel Santos, a Senator Angel Santos. I suspect there never would have been a Senator Robert Klitzkie, because when the parties get together to choose their candidates, they're looking for people that are controllable, that will fall in line with the party. They're not looking for Michael San Nicolas. So if we got rid of the primary, we'd save a little money, but the price would be awfully, awfully high.
Is there also a case that write-in campaigns could be nullified also because you wouldn't have a primary to run on? The general election, you'd be able to have a write-in campaign.
Yeah.
But a primary, some people can do it also, wouldn't be able to, as far as a party nominee.
No, he wouldn't be able to. I don't know that would be a factor, Jose. Now, the situation that we have right now is very difficult to get on the general election ballot unless you are participating in a party primary. You could perfect a candidacy as an independent, and you can get on the ballot as an independent candidate. But you have to get 500 people have to vote for you in order for you to advance to the general election. That's the minimum threshold. So if let's say that Jose Martinez is on the primary election ballot, and hundreds of people say, man, I really want Jose to be in the legislature, but they get inside the ballot, inside the booth, and they're saying, they read the directions, if I vote for Jose,
you can't vote for anything else.
I can't vote in any of the party primaries, the governor, mayor, any of the rest of them. So as a practical matter, it's impossible for an independent candidate to get on the general election ballot. Now, that can be fixed with some very fine-tuned legislation, which no one seems to be interested in, because who is going to be the champion of the independent candidate? Certainly none of the incumbents. The last thing they would want to see would be strong independent candidacies because it would make it harder for them to keep the club together. But doing away with the primary, I just don't see that as a good alternative. The editorial goes on to say the other option is to switch to a nonpartisan blanket primary. Guam uses the open primary model in which voters choose candidates from a particular party. And, you know, there are a lot of different iterations on that. You don't have to declare your party. When you go into the ballot, when you go in to vote, you have a ballot that has the primary candidates for both parties. You choose one or the other. So, and of course, this makes it a lot of fun because crossover voting is the name of the game. If your Gadzu is for sure going to get the nomination for governor on your side, it's an uncontested primary, and there are two gubernatorial candidates on the other side, no sense voting in your primary. Go over and vote in the other and vote for the weakest candidate. It happens all the time. So some states do it this way. If you want to vote in the Democrat Party, you have to have been a Democrat, signed up a member of the party for 60, 90 days before the election. I wouldn't mind seeing something like that. I think it would actually strengthen the process a little bit. An open primary, however, a nonpartisan blanket primary, everybody that wants to run goes on the ballot, and the top 30 advance to the general, regardless of what party they're in. So, you at the general election, you cut the 30 down to 15. A nonpartisan blanket primary results in the top vote getters, regardless of political party, advancing to the general election. For the legislature, the top 30 candidates would move on to the general, where the list would be winnowed to the top 30, as you were top 15. An additional benefit of a nonpartisan blanket primary is that it would make it much more possible for independent candidates to be elected. Now, that's correct. That is true. The primary model Guam uses makes it extremely difficult for anyone running as independent or from any party other than Democrat or Republican to get elected. Yet another positive of nonpartisan blanket primary is that it also would eliminate the persistent problem of crossover voting. In every primary election, thousands of ballots are tossed out and therefore not counted because voters pick candidates from different political parties, which invalidates their votes. In a nonpartisan blanket primary, this wouldn't happen. All votes cast could be counted. So what we really need to do is dumb down the primary here, not expect people to understand the difference between Democrats and Republicans. Guam should either have the local political parties start handling and paying for primary elections. There goes your blue star right there. You don't have to agree with me, but you can't come along with something that's absolutely stupid and expect to be in the running for a blue star or convert to a nonpartisan blanket primary. Yeah, no blue star for you today, Daily News. Otherwise, it would have been a pretty good editorial. But, you know, one of the things about writing editorials is that I don't know that it's written anywhere in the code of journalism, but you kind of got to know what you're talking about.
It helps.
Yeah, because if you don't, people are going to discover it and they're going to say, what is going on here?
But if they do, what are we going to talk about?
That's very true. Anything that's good for talk radio can't be all bad, Jose. Okay, once again, the Post is on strike as far as writing editorials is concerned. I really wish they'd come back because they were doing some pretty good ones. But not to worry, Troy fills in the gap. And Troy is getting to be quite the editorial writer. Troy says, never mind Taitigui's vendetta. Focus on reform to part-time legislature. We don't agree with many of the decisions of Vice Speaker Tina Munoz Barnes has made. We cringe, actually, when it seems she acts as a rubber stamp for the Leon Guerrero administration. But in the newly minted so-called scandal Senator Tello Taitigui has created against her nemesis across the political aisle, our opinions may benefit from two perspectives. The first would be our compassion in light of the facts. And the second is the adage, consider the source. Now, I suppose Tello is really angry at Troy here because she didn't give him her permission to use her name in this editorial. All right, going on. Ms. Munoz Barnes was involved in a serious car accident in the mainland United States months ago. She was there at the time to help her husband deal with a disease that is killing him. Her injuries included a cracked skull, and up to at least a couple weeks ago, her doctor had not cleared her to fly back home. We know this because Candid has been in contacts with both the Vice Speaker and her office over the past several months. Both she and her staff have remained quite helpful in answering our questions. There have been many initiatives her office has undertaken, most of which we elected not to cover because, well, either those things weren't in our wheelhouse or we simply didn't care. The point is, she didn't choose to stay stuck in the States as Ms. Taitigui has insinuated. Ms. Taitigui. She had an emergency, and despite all that, she has remained acceptable and kept her office operational. Granted, this is not what we pay her to do. More on that below. Ms. Taitigui has portrayed her political enemy. Those two have been going at it at such a petty level for 2 years now. As a thief milking the system by playing hooky from the rest of the legislative schoolyard. That's Tina, a thief playing hooky. Even her own political organization, the Republican Party of Guam, called Taitigui out for the Regina George bully she is. Who is Regina George?
I don't know, but my op-ed is that was a weak statement by the Republican Party.
It was, yeah. It was. And, you know, it's always so...
They shoot themselves in the foot and go, when can we shoot ourselves again?
Yeah. And we shot ourselves in the foot, but we really didn't like the way it came out, so we're buying an automatic weapon. Yeah, well, you know, when it comes to situations like this, before I even get to the end, the big C word comes up so often. And for many people, that's the end of the story. You have to show compassion. If you don't show compassion, why are you in the legislature?
So she got elected with pity votes?
Well, when she ran, she said, I may not be able to be in the legislature the whole time that I'm gone, but I know you'll feel bad for me. So thanks for your votes. Even Taitigui's own political organization, the Republican Party, called Taitigui out for the Regina George bully she is. I don't know who Regina George is.
I don't know either. Try call in.
Yeah. I know Dwayne George is the editorial page editor at the Daily News.
And he doesn't bully.
No, he doesn't bully anybody. The party this morning issued the following statement in defense of Democrat Munoz Barnes. The Republican Party of Guam extends our prayers and wishes for a speedy recovery to Vice Speaker Tina Rose Munoz Barnes and the family member she accompanied off island for medical treatment. Okay, here it is, culturally, you know, once you use the word culture, that's the end of the game. As a culturally close-knit community during such dire times, politics must be put aside and replaced with collegiality, humility, and humanity. Were they talking about Tello there? Collegiality, humility, and humanity? We are an island community deeply rooted in respect and concern for each other. The issues which the Vice Speaker and her family face today mirror the realities of what so many of our families endure almost daily. Our people must continue to press for an improvement in our healthcare system, inclusive of striving for more support for our veterans. There is a time and a place for a healthy debate on issues, policies, and politics, but that time should never collide with the timeline of when one is facing a medical emergency recovery. I was sick. We tend to believe the GOP issued the statement not necessarily because of what Taitigui said, but the motivations behind it and precisely who Taitigui is, lest we forget to consider the source. So as far as the GOP is concerned, it's not what Taitigui said, it's
what she didn't say.
There you go. While Taitigui has tried to frame her colleague as a common thief, Taitigui is the one accused of stealing a Michael Kors purse during her tenure as Guam Visitors Bureau Deputy Manager. Remember when Ray used to kick off his show in the morning? What's in Tello's purse?
Yeah.
As of the publication of this editorial, no such complaint has been filed against Ms. Munya Barnes. Okay, I'm going to stop there. And then, Tello says, maybe we should have sick leave for senators to hold them accountable. Bad idea. And here's the answer. If we want to be compassionate, fine, but we should expect some financial responsibility too. And that is that we shouldn't continue to pay somebody who's not doing the work governed by nothing more than a sense of compassion. So if a person is unable to do the job, then we shouldn't pay him. It's just that simple. And if Tina Rose Munya Barnes wanted to send a note to the fiscal folks at the legislature saying, don't send me any checks until I come back, that would be very responsible on her part. Now, I know there'll be people out there, Bob, where's your compassion? Yeah.
Right here.
Right here. Okay, then Troy goes into the bigger picture, a part-time legislature. As taxpayers, we have every right to question whether the Vice Speaker should be collecting her bi-weekly paycheck. You damn betcha. In fact, we wouldn't be responsible citizens if we didn't at least wonder, what the heck is going on here? The issue for us isn't that Miss Munya Barnes is taking an extended vacation because she means to stiff the taxpayers. She simply ran into a conversation she lost with God, and like others in GovGuam who have met unexpected trauma and emergency, she just couldn't get back to her office physically for quite some time. There's a difference, though, between senators and other GovGuam employees. While senators are paid full-time employees' salaries, they don't accumulate leave hours. Normally, GovGuam employees who can't return to work because of an ailment or some other extraordinary diversion will exhaust leave hours before asking others to share leave hours with them. Miss Munya Barnes can do neither. The question we should be asking is why we even pay senators full-time salaries. Exactly. While there are some senators who hustle on a full-time schedule of truly legislative work, most can hardly claim to earn $55,000 a year. Indeed, senators' schedules are filled with nothing and nonsense, ranging from entire mornings dedicated to funeral runs. Well, if you're a senator, you got to go to the dead. And I'm going to tell my joke one more time. Okay, senator pulls up in front of the church. There's a little boy playing with his ball out in front of the church. Senator rolls down the window and hollers at the boy, "Hey, boy, Haji Matai?" In other words, the senator doesn't even know for whom the funeral is being held. and he knows he wants to be there.
But there's one there.
Yeah. Okay, ranging entire mornings dedicated to funeral runs, afternoons filled with resolution presentations and meetings that likely are precursors to corruption, and evenings of hobnobbing. Now, he doesn't mention the absolute license to show up at every social event on the island 15 minutes late and then be greeted as though you were the return of the prodigal son. But, of course, how can you make a grand entrance if you're on time? Anybody knows that, right? Oh, and now I'd like to halt our proceedings to welcome Senator Smucker Huckowitz. Come in, Senator. We're so glad you could join us tonight. We know this to be true both by our experience working in the legislature and dealing with the legislature, and after reviewing the work calendars of senators following the Freedom of Information Act disclosure of calendars in 2020. Most senators do absolutely nothing for hours during the day according to their own work calendars. So why do we pay senators a full-time salary? Why do we consider them full-time employees? They obviously aren't. And the bill that I introduced in the 28th makes it absolutely clear senators are not government employees. There's nothing that says that you have to be a senator, you have to be an employee if you're an elected official. It's a boondoggle. Why do we consider them full-time employees? They obviously aren't. They don't operate like that. And do we want them to? Do we really want senators at the intellectual most of them possess to be at their desks drumming up the next ridiculous regulation on our freedoms or tax on our properties? We need less, far less government in our lives. If the legislature is to be representative of such value, then it needs to operate as a reflection of our dependence on government, limited and restricted. And what is it that I always say? Let me find it here. Don't tell me I didn't bring a card along. Probably not. You got it in front of you, Jose. Can you read it?
The card?
A effective, efficient government operating within the rule of law, providing basic government services on at least a break-even basis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's what I'm...
Very good.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for anything other than that. So Troy says we need less, far less government in our lives. If the legislature is to be representative of such a value, then it needs to operate as a reflection of our dependence on government, limited and restricted. Reprehensible as it is, this controversy Ms. Teitegui has raised can actually lead to positive change if channeled correctly. Put aside her personal gripe with Munya Barnes, and let us focus on the issue at hand. We must recognize she would have no argument and not even a filament of public crusade against Vice Speaker Tina Munya Barnes if they and their colleagues were part-time lawmakers. This is a black and white issue. It's as simple as that. I couldn't agree more. Good going, Troy. And it causes me to ask the question, whatever happened to Jim Moylan's part-time legislature bill? He got his earned media out of it. Why bother? Okay, so Daily News, no blue star for you. And Troy, even if the Daily News hadn't flubbed it so bad, I think you probably still would have got the coveted blue star. So congratulations, Troy. So let's see, that takes Troy up to 7. Congratulations, Troy. Let's take a short break here and let Troy catch his breath.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point. Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
There are people, how did you know? Here's the deal. Take your used car to the guys over at Nissan Guam, and they're going to take a look at it. And if they love it, and they probably will because you take care of things, you could get all kinds of money on this, cash for your car. Used car values are higher than ever before. They'll take all makes and models. Doesn't need to be a Nissan or an Infiniti. They'll give you a super fast appraisal, and you say, shoot, sign the papers. Now, you can use that as down payment on a brand new Nissan if you like, or maybe you need a used car. Maybe you're sitting around going, well, I got somebody's going to come in, they're moving to Guam and whatever, and they're going to need a ride. So let's go to Nissan Guam and check out the great sale they've got. The Nissan Ninja sale is going on. So all those used cars that people are taking in, well, they refurb them, change out the oil and the belts and all of the things that need to get taken care of, and turn them practically into brand new automobiles and give you some incredible savings, up to $14,000 on the used car inventory. Go and take a look at it. NissanGuam.com.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Okay, here we are back at Tall Tales here, and I'm going to get into the card, reminding everybody that today is Red Shirt Monday. Take a look at that red shirt. What color is my shirt, Jose?
That's absolutely red, Bob.
It has to be red.
It can only be red.
I would never wear an orange shirt.
Never, ever.
Yeah, everybody knows that. So it's a red shirt.
That is Tall Tales truth.
Absolutely. Okay, so here's the card. We start out, of course, with Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. GVB made the card again by violating the open government law. Talk about a serial offender.
At least they're consistent.
That's for sure. And then I'm going to stop for a minute at PUC versus CCU because we have a new great pronouncement that came out of that item on the card. And then I've got the legislature versus Tall Tales. And then Bill Maher versus the left. Now, it's one thing when you hear me bad-mouthing the left on a 24/7 basis, right? But when Bill Maher, Mr. Lefty himself, Mr. I'm an atheist, I've always been a Democrat, I'm a progressive, when he starts bad-mouthing the left,
it's a different eye that's woke.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a classic case of the man biting the dog. And then we're going to go into this right after the big halftime show. After the halftime show, it is Monday, so right after the halftime show, we're going to run the video of Hope Cristobal's screen test again. So if you haven't seen it, get your popcorn ready, call your neighbors over. You're going to see the voice, you're going to hear the voice and see the face of the separatist movement right on your screen if you've got Facebook. So I'll do that, and then I've got woke colleges versus us, racism versus Harvard, and I might finally finish with Chucky versus Jim Crow. All right, starting out with Paul Zerzan and systemic racism. By now, everybody knows that that platter of rice in that picture is red. Don't let your eyes deceive you and tell you that it's orange, because what color it is inconsequential. What's consequential, what really matters, is the narrative. when Paul Zerzan wrote a letter to the PDN and said, you know, that stuff you guys call red rice isn't red, it's orange. This is what he got back. This is what he got back from the Daily News. Readers to Zerzan, leave our red rice alone. And there's a column there by Therese Padua Howe explaining how the narrative tells us that that platter of rice is red. So it's a seemingly minor thing, but it's such a good illustration of the narrative versus the truth that I'm going to keep it on tap here so that if I have a little difficulty explaining that concept, all I got to do is tell you, remember systemic racism. Okay, Guam Visitors Bureau versus Public Law 36-2034. This ran in today's Post. Guam Visitors Bureau will hold a North America, Pacific, and Philippines Marketing Committee meeting on Wednesday, February 2 at 2 p.m. in GVB's main conference room. Here's the agenda. Call to order. That's okay. Approval of minutes from November 3, 2021. Okay. Report of the chairman. Maybe, maybe not. Report of the chairman on would be a lot better. Report of GVB management. Same thing. And then here's the absolute death knell. Item number 5, old business. You can't do that anymore. You can't just put old business on the agenda, because if you do that, the whole agenda fails, and any action that you took during that meeting is void because of the strictures of 36-34. GVB, somebody needs to get fired here because somebody just keeps running the old agendas and changes the dates and doesn't care about the law. And it's going to come back and really bite you one of these days.
You know what? I never saw in the law, but I wonder if it's a good incentive. If a meeting gets void because it violated the open government law, then the stipends also are voided.
Good point. Be an interesting amendment to the statute, wouldn't it? Yeah. Good idea, Jose. No stipend shall be payable for a void attendance at a void meeting. Good idea. Okay, then we've got the PUC versus the CCU, and that talks about power increases, etc. Let me grab my great pronouncements just to refresh your recollection here on great pronouncements. We had Attorney Vanessa Williams tell us it's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. That's probably the keynote right there, Jose. And we had Chief Steve Ignacio talking about Jeepgate. Steve said, I have no information, even from the get-go, that there was a cover-up in this crash. And we got a couple from the governor. We are transparent and accountable to the people. We are transparent with reports, meetings, and minutes. As far as I'm concerned, we're following everything that we are required to do. And then she didn't say any questions because there's no need. There could not be any questions. But of course, as I keep going through these open government law violations every day, Governor, it shows that you're not doing everything that you're required to do. Governor, again, I think that talking about political status, I think the route to go is get out there and let's vote for it, the governor said, later adding, if I had it my way, I would vote tomorrow, and I would only vote with native inhabitants. So much for separatism. And then a recent addition, Mauricio Mayor Ernest Chargaloff, when the issue came before the Mayor's Council as to how to apportion some of the money of the big bucks that came from the national government, some said it should be done pro tanto. The bigger your village, the more money you get. Some said no, each village should get the same. So there were good arguments presented in either direction, but the argument that carried the day came from Ernest Chargaloff who said each village should get the same amount of money regardless of its size. Here's what Ernest Chargaloff said. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Huh? Yeah. You can't argue with that. You know, I mean, that's an ironclad rule.
That's my next tattoo.
What's good for the goose is good for the gander.
I don't own any tattoos.
All right, and then we added this today. PUC Chairman Jeff Johnson. The more, talking about rates, the more we kick it down the road, the more the surcharge will increase later. The anti-kicking it down the road prescription. Okay, so much for that. And then the Education Board, legislature versus tall tales. Education Board backs increase in teachers' pay. Now, there's a lot in this article that I think I need to comment about. It's like we got somebody trying to get in from the green room here. Yeah, let's hold on. I'll hang on for a second and see what Kellis has got to say about. You want to talk about kicking the can down the road, Kellis?
Oh, I was sitting there saying, but what happens if your goose identifies as a gander or a gander as a goose, but what if your goose identifies as a chicken?
Yeah, wow. You know, good call, Kellis. Man, we got to go back. Yeah, what's...
And then you got your goose, could that be a they or a them or a zeg or a zoog, or
yeah.
What if he identifies as a watermelon?
Yeah, well, it could be that we thought it was a goose, but the goose wasn't really a goose. The goose was a gander, and then we're stuck with what's good for the gander is good for the gander, and that kind of takes the symmetry out of it, doesn't it, Kellis?
Yeah, because what if the goose is actually a male or someone that identifies as a male?
Yeah.
Instead of a goose or a gander. Yeah,
Jose, we got to get Ernest Chargaloff on the phone here and get him to bring some sense into the. Only a mind like his would come up with this. And
only he can lay the golden egg.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I figured that Judge, that with your supreme legal mind, that you could cut through this whole identity crisis thing. And give us what is true and actual. That, I'm a woman, I'm Chinese, and I'm 12 years old.
Yeah, well, if I tried to rule on this, I'm afraid that the cry from the audience would be foul.
Okay, Judge, I just wanted to go and throw that in there real fast.
Glad you did, Kellis. Thanks again. Kellis usually adds a little flavor to the show. Very good, Kellis. Okay, so I want to talk about the legislature versus tall tales. This is an article in Ren in the Post. Education boards backs increase in teachers' pay, and there's a lot to talk about here. The University of Guam recently graduated 43 students in the education field. However, according to Education Board member Peter Alexis Ada, the Department of Ed was only able to interest a few. A large number were hired by the Department of Defense Education Activity. We refer to that as DODEA. A few went to other educational institutions, he told four fellow board members at a recent meeting. We have to take care of our teachers. There's no question about it. On Wednesday, the Education Board approved a $268.3 million fiscal 2023 budget request for GDOE, which will be submitted to the legislature. The resolution with the budget request states the Education Board's commitment to developing and submitting a proposal for the adjustment of education employee compensation within the next several weeks and prior to the elections next several weeks and prior to the legislature's consideration and approval of the 2023 budget. Guam's law enforcement officers, effect this month, received an 18% pay increase. Nurses received a 15% pay increase in June. Agency leaders for affected positions said that salary bumps would help with recruitment and retention. ADA renewed his appeal to fellow members to help find funds for GDOE teachers' salary increases. At any given time, Department of Ed has 50 to 70 teachers vacancies. To add to this, Department of Ed recently reported roughly 30 to 40 teachers on military leave, which means staff is needed to cover those classes for extended periods of time. At the forefront of the issue, DOE teachers are among the third lowest paid in the nation. I don't understand why we have trouble recruiting for our Department of Education.
Mandates.
Which doesn't make it appealing to those in the market for a job. It was a point Addis stressed when he asked for 5 minutes of the board's time to add teacher pay raises to the fiscal year 2023 draft proposed budget discussion. Do we have the money? I think we do right now to pay our teachers and not wait until October. I think there's money now to take care of our teachers. Retirees want to teach, but some of them have said, it's not worth it. I'd rather go to the charter school or a non-public school. Ada said, I invite my fellow members to join me in this endeavor. I have done my own research, and I took 3 school districts, Hawaii, California, and Nevada. We are the lowest of them all, with the exception of special ed. GovGuam teachers on average earn $43,992 a year, Ada said. By comparison, a Dodea teacher's yearly pay is approximately $60,000, which is 58% above the national average, according to the employment website Indeed.com. Now, I'm going to stop right here. And this is something that I think the Department of Education and the legislature are going to have to come to grips with. You got to pay teachers in the Department of Education the same amount of money that they pay Dodea teachers. This is simple free market economics. Why would anyone want to work for less money if he has a choice? So when you're having trouble buying something, it means you're not paying enough for it. When you're having trouble hiring teachers, it means you're not paying teachers enough money. So Education Board, adopt a resolution that said, we hereby adopt the same pay schedule as Dodea. And as time goes on, we will continue to maintain that parity. All right, let's break for the big halftime show. Remember, after the halftime show, we're coming back to Hope Cristobal's screen test.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Concerning Russia's buildup of 100,000 troops along its border with Ukraine. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, saying council members will press Russia.
We've seen the Russian playbook before. They are using disinformation. They're encouraging Ukrainians not to worry about an attack, but we know that the attack is possible. You don't amass 100,000 troops if you don't have intentions to use them.
Linda Thomas-Greenfield on ABC's This Week. Another missile launch by North Korea, this one an intermediate-range ballistic missile capable of reaching the U.S. territory of Guam. Sunday's test of the Hwasong-12 missile was the highest-profile weapons test by North Korea since 2017. Senate members are waiting for their chance to chat with whomever President Joe Biden nominates to fill the seat of retiring Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. South Carolina Republican Lindsey Graham praising a possible nominee, South Carolina federal judge J. Michelle Childs.
It would be good for the court to have somebody who's not at Harvard or Yale. She's a graduate of the University of South Carolina, a public education background. She's been a workers' comp judge. She's highly qualified. She's of good character, and we'll see how she does if she's nominated. But I cannot say anything bad about Michelle Childs. She is an awesome person.
Senator Graham on CBS's Face the Nation. Well, it was dig-out day on Sunday for areas of the Northeast that got slammed Saturday by a vicious nor'easter with blizzard conditions in many areas. Massachusetts bearing the brunt of the storm, the towns of Sharon and Stoughton getting more than 2.5 feet of snow. America is listening to Fox News.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Half a day. This is Claire Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
A carbon monoxide leak at an Ohio hotel leaves several guests hospitalized.
Investigators are working to figure out what exactly caused that carbon monoxide leak that sickened more than a dozen adults and children in an Ohio hotel. Authorities tell us this all happened at a Hampton Inn in Marysville, Ohio, a small town about 30 miles northwest of Columbus. Police say calls started rolling in Saturday evening about what was later confirmed to be a carbon monoxide leak. The first concerning a 2-year-old girl who was found unconscious in or near a pool. Not long after, police say more calls started coming in from that same hotel, with callers reporting people having symptoms of dizziness, burning sensation in the throat, and losing consciousness.
Fox's Charles Watts and 14 guests at the hotel were hospitalized, including 6 children. Meantime, the investigation continues into a 6-vehicle crash that killed 9 people Saturday in North Las Vegas, Nevada. There's still no word, though, on whether a driver was impaired while speeding through a red light and causing the collision. That driver and a passenger were among those killed. The pandemic and a winter storm in the Northeast making for a quiet weekend at the movie box office.
Spider-Man No Way Home continues to spin its web over the box office.
You're flying out into the darkness to fight ghosts.
The Sony Pictures Marvel blockbuster surpassing studio expectations with $11 million in ticket sales in its 7th weekend of release. Scream holds on to second place on the weekend charts. Paramount's Thriller selling 7.4 million in tickets during its 3rd weekend in theaters. Universal's Sing 2 in the number 3 spot with 4.8 million in ticket sales. Kathleen Maloney, Fox News.
I'm Paul Stevens, and this is Fox News.
$15 might not get you that far, but Chili's is bucking the trend with $15 meal deals. At Chili's, $15 gives you not 1, not 2, but 3-course meal deals complete with a drink, a starter, and an entree. Mix and match 3-course meals 15 ways to Sunday with soup, salad, or chips and salsa to start, and ranchero chicken tacos, honey chipotle crispers with rice, bacon ranch quesadillas, or personal fajitas for the main course. Build your own $15 meal deal at Chili's. More life and great value happen here.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Eat Fresh Refresh goes on at Subway. You've tried the Cali Fresh steak. Now you can enjoy the Cali Fresh turkey. One of only 2 Cali Fresh subs. The Cali Fresh turkey is packed with deli-thin, oven-roasted turkey piled high on a bed of hickory smoked bacon, smashed avocado, and fresh mozzarella. Crafted for premium freshness, the Cali Fresh turkey is made on freshly baked, hearty, multi-grain bread with your choice of fresh veggies hand-sliced daily in restaurants. Treat yourself to a Cali Fresh turkey today. Subway. Eat fresh.
Guam Auto Spot has the best selection in Buick, GMC, Mitsubishi, and used cars like the 2021 Mitsubishi Mirage starting at $127 per paycheck. 0 down. Call 671-478-AUTO to take a test drive or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com.
Okay, here we are on Tall Tales after another great halftime show here on Tall Tales. And it's that time of the week where we're going to go to Hope Cristobal's screen test. Now, by way of a little bit of background here, let me bring you kind of up to speed on this matter. Hope Cristobal was the author of, let's see here, where's that stuff? The author of the statute that created the, my nose are kind of messed up here. Should have gotten these things straightened out before. Well, anyhow, the Commission on Self-Determination, which really isn't a Commission on Self-Determination, it's a Commission on, the Commission on Decolonization, which is the Commission on Chamorro Independence, basically. And I've spent a fair amount of time talking about that on Tall Tales here. And I'm going to spend a lot more time talking about it because I have this this 20-page insert that the commission published on December 6th of last year. So Hope Cristobal created the so-called Chamorro Decolonization Commission, which basically is a Chamorro Independence Commission. And I would leave you with one thought, and that is that no matter how many times people try to define it in some other direction, when you hear the word decolonization, you're talking about one thing and one thing only: independence. The so-called three choices are only one choice. Statehood's an impossibility. Free association contemplates an independent state. So you only got independence. So all of this flowery rhetoric about tomorrow tomorrow self-determination, etc., really means we want independence. Okay, so with no further ado, the author of the Decolonization Commission legislation is Hope Cristobal, and here's Hope in action.
Colonizer. You're nothing but a white colonizer. That's who you are. Colonization is the same thing as slow murder. You're a murderer. That's who you are.
We need to just do different. We need to do that.
Get off my island.
Sir, you need to go. You can't be policing people here and telling people how to protest and what to protest for. You need to go.
You need to go. I'm against this. Yeah, that's cool, but you cannot be policing people until they have protests and what to advocate for. She has a right to yell.
I'm an indigenous tomorrow. I have more rights here than you are. You came here because of the structures of colonialism, asshole. Tayo mamalaw how sige Jordan Tano. Titaw tano how. Waho bini taw tano. Waho bini magahoga. Waho na short na kay gitu bini. Hago tata na short mo bini. What's on you? You need to leave.
You need to go.
Please.
You need to get out of here.
Please, sponsor.
Get out of here.
Please, this is not your place.
When I get a chance, go.
Please. Thank you. Thank you, sponsor. Please.
No, you cannot.
What happened, man?
Well, he confronted me.
What did he
He's
say?
telling me I shouldn't be here. I support Black Lives Matter. It's part of the colonialistic systemic racism. And I came here to support these people. He's a white man that has come here. And he continues the legacy of colonialism. He continues to fight people, individuals, my goodness. I'm a former senator. I authored the Commission on Decolonization. Ay, mamalo.
You're proud of you, Auntie.
Si Diyos mangasi.
He's safe.
So that's Hope Cristobal's screen test. I don't know, probably the Coen brothers would be interested in, or who is the guy that does all of the horror movies, like Cujo and some of those?
Stephen King.
Yeah, maybe Stephen King could do something with this, right? Yeah,
I'm thinking a hard-hitting documentary by Michael Moore.
Yeah, this is the separatist movement. This is the lady that drafted the Decolonization Commission legislation. And she wants you to know that she is an indigenous Chamorro. And therefore she has more rights than Paul Zerzan, who is a murderer and came here only because of because he's a colonizer and he needs to get off the island. So that's who you're talking about with Chamorro self-determination. And then you notice that there was a crowd of young people there who exhibited, in the complete absence of righteousness, were still able to exhibit a sense of righteous indignation.
They had no idea. They were just parroting.
Yeah.
I don't even know if they even knew what happened.
Well, they knew that the actress was spouting off, and that was enough for them. So I've played this probably a half dozen times now, and I always put it on. I always identified it as the face and the voice of the separatist movement. And you know who has come forward? Which champion of Chamorro self-determination, decolonization? Which one has come forward to say, that's not who we are. We repudiate that. You know who has done that? Nobody. So apparently, I'm not exaggerating. That is the voice of decolonization here in the island, which, of course, means independence. So I've got a lot more to say about this, but I notice I've got another Joe who wants to talk about Hope Cristobal. Go for it, another Joe.
Hey, Uncle Bob. I'll say in answer to you're saying no one's going forward. Okay, I'll come forward now. I'm in support of most everybody, including their movement, if they're honest about it. But they're not being honest. They're not being upfront about what they have a right to be heard. Doesn't mean I have a right to agree with them. You know what I'm saying? And if they want it to be heard, it's actually better so I know what they have in their mind, what they intend. And I can tell them, in response, I don't completely agree with you. In context, would my elders agree with you? And I don't think so. I don't think they would agree with you, but respectfully, these are the reasons why, starting out because they felt and gratitude of being liberated from the Japanese occupation. That's one way to start. And also the system of government. Maybe our elders were wrong to be supportive of it if they had buyer's remorse, but they did not come forward to my understanding to voice that. And so as far as having more rights than others in our system of government, which they're not coming forward and saying openly, I am against our system of government. Our system of government allows for everyone to have a right to be in a certain place. Now, I'm a little bit confused where those rights extend to everyone who is, including anyone who's not a U.S. citizen, because I think the Constitution doesn't say specifically you have to be a citizen of the United States. I think it's just every human being has I could be wrong about that, but
you see another, Joe, the reason that I think we really need to pay attention to what she's saying is she doesn't care about our system of government. If you're white, you don't belong here. You should leave. You're a colonizer. You're a bad person. Ipso facto, you're bad. She is a native indigenous Chamorro. She has more rights.
What's up with that? Shouldn't we question Robert Underwood? Say, hey, Robert Underwood, look what your influences has created. How do you feel about what?
And that's my point exactly. Robert Underwood calls the show almost every time I run this and says, Hope has strong opinions. And of course, in our system of government, people are free to express their opinions. But I don't agree with her, and she doesn't speak for me.
Robert says he doesn't agree with her.
She doesn't speak for me, and she doesn't speak for the people that support the same things that I support. When did Robert say that? Answer:
Nope. Oh, he didn't.
Never. Never.
Nope.
So apparently,
maybe we should ask him to come up forward and say something about it, because he's a leader.
Every Monday, I ask him, Robert, when are you going to come out and repudiate the chairman of your commission, your Chamorro Language Commission that you're so proud of? So,
but I try, sorry.
So if this is the way we're going to approach it, you start out with the separatists. Start out with the idea, well, everyone will be fine, except we're going to vote on something, and you can't vote unless you're a particular race. And then we follow it up with the Hope Cristobal, who introduced the legislation that passed over Governor Gutierrez's veto, and this rant, and no one comes forward to say, we don't buy into that rant. That's not us. That's not our focus. So apparently it is their focus. Apparently the idea is that Chamorro should have more right than white people, and white people should leave the island. Because I don't hear anybody coming forward and saying, no, that's not the way it is.
Yeah, I'll say that right now. I don't think that's the way it is. I don't feel like they're being threatened by the existing white population. I don't see pro-Nazi characters threatening us here. And really, we need to educate the younger generation, because they outnumber us about the millennials and the younger generation. And so if we don't pay attention and fact check and show them what the truth is, then they're going to go along with the narrative, which they hear most of the time. Someone said that if someone yells it loud enough, long enough, people start to believe or something. So it's really for the benefit of the younger generation, posterity, that we give them evidence contrary to what the narrative is, and give them the facts so they can make an informed decision and know that there's I keep going back to the Winston Churchill, Kebab. This is the worst form of government except for all others. So think that, because you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Yeah, Kebab, thanks for your time. I'll just keep listening, okay?
All right. Nice talking to you, another Joe. Okay, I've got Repeat, who wants to talk about a hopeless poll. And I've got our Fred. Man, this must be an important topic, because our Fred wants to join the conversation. So first, a caller who will probably Repeat, and then our Fred. Good afternoon, Repeat.
Good day, Uncle Bob. I listened to that playing. I heard it the first time, or it was going around social media, and I was listening, and yeah, it sounds very bad, and I'm not gonna try to explain it or make excuses. It is bad, all right. But also at the same time, I understand her frustration and I understand her anger, and the reason why I say that is because I was present at a previous meeting when Paul showed up. And he had to be physically removed from the meeting because he was shouting and he was being indignant and he was, yelling at, just spouting off a whole bunch of things about the UN. And whether he was right or he was wrong, the manner that he did it was very disruptive. And so I understand that there's no love between these two. They're not strangers to each other. But just to put it in context, and that's why I said the reason why I'm calling, because, Paul is hopeless, as in he has no love from hope.
I don't see the context at all. Repeat. Nice try.
Well, I'm just saying that there's more to this exchange between them than just this 15-second clip or whatever it is.
Well,
I'm not explaining or trying to justify what she said.
How about condemning? I think that would be appropriate. That's what I'm looking for. Is nothing but condemnation.
I would condemn those statements. I would definitely condemn those statements. But I'm just saying, she's being villainized, but it goes both ways sometimes, or in their situation, because they're no strangers to each other, and he has been disruptive himself and had to physically be removed from meetings in the past. So I'm just trying to say that there's additional background between these two people.
If she had gotten in front of that microphone and said that Paul Zerzan is a dirty skunk and an honorary pig stealer and does something like that, fine. But that's not what she was not talking about Paul Zerzan. She's talking about white people, indigenous Chamorros, who has what rights, who should stay on the island, who should leave. That's just inexcusable. And those who are part of that cabal and don't come forward and condemn it, I think there's a sound argument that they've adopted it. They've signed up for it. I hope that's not you, Repeat.
No, like I said, I do condemn those statements. Those are not good statements at all. The fact that they didn't come forward, you could make that inference, but it's different from them coming forward and saying, yeah, we back her up, or we agree to those statements. I think the reason they don't come forward is just because, out of, not the word respect or reverence, but not wanting to go up against her and who she is and what position she holds.
Let me give you a statement from my Aunt Florence that might help here. Repeat. This is the reasoning of Aunt Florence sometimes to not engage with some people. Aunt Florence would tell you there's no sense getting in a pissing match with a skunk.
Right. Like my grandfather said, I told you too, that sometimes the only thing that comes out, or not sometimes, but all the time, the only thing that comes out of getting into a pissing match is that two people end up with piss all over each other.
Yeah, well, I guess your grandfather must have read about Aunt Florence. Nice talking to you. Nice talking to you again, Repeat.
All right.
All right, so there we go. Hope Cristobal, the voice and face.
They could be bitter rivals, but I think what's important here, in the greater context of what you're bringing, why we keep repeating this, is she is the author of the Commission on Decolonization. Her language is probably the catalyst for writing that bill. Mm-hmm. Probably it is the catalyst for writing that bill.
Her
sentiment.
Yeah, her raison d'etre. Right.
Paul's are like they could have it both back and forth, a history of it, but she used him in that moment to generalize a statement. to make a statement, and it wasn't to somebody who happened to be recording. It was a media person, I believe it was, who recorded that whole thing, recorded the whole exchange, in front of media.
Mm-hmm. So, obviously, desiring to make a statement, having the opportunity to make a statement, having somebody to beat up on. I guess we're back to what was George's first name again?
Oh, sorry, was Rachel? Was it, or it was somebody from a movie called Mean Girls.
Mean Girls, yeah. Let me see if I can find the first name again. Darn it. Oh yeah, that was in Troy's op-ed, wasn't it? Let me just check that out real quick here. Regina George.
Not related to Dwayne George.
Not related to Dwayne George. And we know that Regina George was a character in a movie called Mean Girls, causing me to wonder if whoever produced Mean Girls is doing a sequel. And Hope saw the opportunity to do a screen test for the Regina George character. Yeah, it's just, there's just no getting around it. It's absolutely inexcusable. One might have thought that she might have sought out some kind of an opportunity to at least not apologize, at least kind of smooth it out a little bit. And again, you know, we're getting into it today. All of the separatists apparently have adopted the rap. So let me see who I got here in the green room today. I got Paul Zerzan. Okay, the very Paul Zerzan. Now, Paul, I don't have to warn you about keeping your language clean and not getting too carried away. So go ahead.
Okay, but you probably do. But the thing is, you know, Hope Christopher and I have difference on this issue, but I actually like her. She's about 6 years older than me. She was born in 1946. Her father is a white Marine from the U.S. mainland, and she grew up in a military family, a lot of siblings, same as me. She was raised Catholic, and she acknowledges that in her family, as I acknowledge in my family, alcohol is a problem and was a problem. And so, you know, other than this particular issue, I like her, and we're both kind of crazy. And then the thing about me being removed from a meeting, I used to go to the, decolonization meetings, and they would bring in no documents. And they would claim that that we only have three choices and that only Native inhabitants should vote. And I would bring in prints of the United Nations documents, and I would say that this is not true. You know, I have it right here, that we must have universal adult suffrage and a decolonization vote. And according to the United Nations, we can make any political choice that we want. And they don't want to hear that, and so they throw me out, okay? And so that's why I was thrown out. But, aside from this issue, I think Hope lost it, but I actually like her. We have a similar background. And her idea of being anti-white, she is half white, okay? And so in any case, when people say that there's a bitterness between us, no, there's not. We just have our squabble. We had a very colorful squabble right there. And what I told her, as I said, this is a Black Lives Movement. I was upset about some blacks who had been murdered by police in the U.S. And so I attended the Black Lives Movement to support it. And I don't want anybody to hijack it. So she comes in with a decolonization poster, and I say, don't hijack this, okay? This is a Black Lives Movement. And I really think, we have to keep, if we mix issues, it becomes confusing. So whatever noble issue you have, it be gay rights or save the whales or whatever, it should be people there for that issue alone and not bring in something else. So I told her, I said, don't hijack this. And it set her off. And so we both get a lot of publicity from it, and I appreciate her for that. So anyway, that's my side of the story. That's all I have to say. Maybe I'll hang up, okay?
Well, Paul, I'm glad you called, because as far as I'm concerned, you're one of the good guys out here. When it comes to public issues, you have been immortalized in the context of systemic racism. I don't know if you listened to that part of the show, but we need people. We need people who will look at something that's orange and not go along with the narrative and say that it's red.
Right.
With respect to Hope Cristobal, no disrespect to you at all, Paul, but this is not about you.
Right, I understand that. But that other guy called in and talked about me, so I felt I should. But, I was in Guam for 30 years before I looked at the rice and I said, wait a minute, that's orange. That's not red. So for 30 years, I also went along with the narrative automatically, and so that's my story. Okay, I'll hang up now, okay?
Good talking to you, Paul. Thanks for calling. All right, let's head for Chicago in the 7th inning stretch. And when I come out of the stadium, I've got our Fred, I've got Frenchie, and another Joe for another ride on the merry-go-round.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Rid of it? Yeah, yes, there are people. Absolutely. How did you know? Here's the deal. Take your used car to the guys over at Nissan Guam, and they're going to take a look at it. And if they love it, and they probably will because you take care of things, you could get all kinds of money on this, cash for your car. Used car values are higher than ever before. They'll take all makes and models. Doesn't need to be a Nissan or an Infiniti. They'll give you a super fast appraisal, and you say, shoot, sign the papers. Now, you can use that as down payment on a brand new Nissan if you like, or maybe you need a used car. Maybe you're sitting around going, well, I guess somebody's going to come in, they're moving to Guam and whatever, and they're going to need a ride. So let's go to Nissan Guam and check out the great sale they've got. The Nissan Ninja sale is going on. So all those used cars that people are taking in, well, they refurb them, change out the oil and the belts and all of the things that need to get taken care of, and turn them practically into brand new automobiles and give you some incredible savings, up to $14,000 on the used car inventory. Go and take a look at it. NissanGuam.com.
Wrigley Field in Chicago. What's going on down there in the field? It looks like there's a little bit of a brouhaha. A couple of the Cubs have gotten into it from a member. Oh, the umpire just kicked Hope Cristobal out of the game. But she's not going lightly. She's raising quite a fuss. Yeah. Okay, so much for the 7th inning stretch. And now I've got another Joe, our Fred and Frenchie, who want to talk about. Another Joe wants to talk about decolonization versus Black Lives Matter, but our Fred and Frenchie want to talk about Hope Cristobal. So our Fred called in first, so we'll go our Fred, Frenchie, and then another Joe. Good afternoon, our Fred.
Hey, good afternoon, Judge. It's been a while, but like I said, I always listen to you.
Good.
I'm keeping, today you got me all rallied up after playing that audio clip from
Home
earlier.
screen test.
Oh man, I tell you, you got the crowd going. So I want to say is, my approach is very pragmatic, pretty much realistic approach to everything, which logical sense. And I got a few points I want to make. First is that, you know how many indigenous Chamorros are living in the U.S. of A., mainland, United States of America, who are living under the colonial power, the land of the colonial power?
Bunchy.
It's mind-boggling to hear the word that indigenous Chamorros have the right to this and the right to that, and how they're saying, get out of my land and this and that. When there's more indigenous Chamorros in the U.S. mainland living in, if you want to call it white, if you want to call it just America, whatever you want to call it, but they're living closer to the colonial power. So I think if those indigenous Chamorros in the U.S. heard what us locals are saying here, I think they'll be laughing at us, because I think they love the colonial power and the perks they get living there. Next thing I want to say is that I think the 50,410 people who don't want to work, they're benefiting greatly from the colonial power, because the colonial power is feeding them, housing them, providing schools for them, public education, meals, even providing the free credit card that they can use for missed schools, lunches that they were giving out at Micronesia Mall. I think the colonial power is really taking good care of the indigenous and non-indigenous people on Guam. So I think those 50,410 people will, which is like one-third of the population, really appreciates the colonial power. The other point I want to make is indigenous. I mean, the foreigners that come here and sow on the land, build on this land, build businesses or build whatever they do, they build and sow on this land. I think that they equally own this land. To say to the non-Chamorros to say, get out of my land or get out of my island or whatever, I think the first need to look at who sowed on this land, who's providing the locals with amenities and products and services that they wouldn't have had in the first place if the foreigners never came. So it's equally their land. Who sows on this land doesn't matter if they were born here or not, indigenous or not. Lastly, I want to say is, if the indigenous Chamorros are so bent out of shape about feeling this way, then why are they taking up space, the same indigenous taking up space in the USA? They have homes there. They've purchased homes there. They go there for health care. They go there for all the services that they can't get here. How can they even say anything against the colonial power that's taking such good care of them? I think that's logical, common sense.
Well,
that's all I have to say, Bob.
Fred, that's kind of how you made your bones on Tall Tales, Mr. Logical Common Sense, better known as our Fred. Thanks for calling, our Fred.
Yeah, thanks, Bob.
Okay. All right, that was our Fred. Yeah, and an interesting phenomenon that there's so many Chamorros that got away from the colonizer by moving to the No, that doesn't work out, does it? Okay, so let's see. Next, I've got, I believe it's Frenchie, and then circling back to another Joe. Good afternoon, Frenchie.
Good afternoon, Bob. Well, you sure raised a ruckus today.
That's my job.
You're giving Troy some competition for mud racking. So anyway, yeah, I'm very glad that Polzers and called and made it clear what he said to Hope Christabel. You know, I mean, basically, what he was telling her very politely was not to appropriate herself of the black issue by pretending to come and support BLM, and she was actually pushing for her own narrow agenda. So what she was doing was cultural appropriation, which is a big no-no in CRT. And that's what Bevacqua and everything is always denouncing, is appropriation of culture and everything. And that's exactly what Hope was doing. And then, of course, Paul Zerzan is also half black, so he had much better reason to be at a BLM demonstration than Hope ever has. He had at least
I want to interject here, Frenchie.
Yeah.
Are you ready? Huh?
Huh? Yeah. So, no. So that, you know, it's very interesting. And you know, what's his name? Repeat called and say, well, you know, she doesn't mean it and blah, blah, blah. And those two have had a feud going on for years. But it doesn't matter, you know, the points that you made, which is that the people in the pro-independence movement that have remained really silent in not condemning Hope Christabel's outburst, racist outburst, they basically, you know, silence equal acquiescence. So basically they're endorsing by their silence what she did. And, you know, Paul was saying, well, she's half white. Well, how about Underwood? How about Bevacqua? How about Wampat? How about all those people? Most of them are half white, and they are the most stringent, radical leftists out of that group. And so they are using a form of critical race theory, and basically they are pushing for segregation where the Chamorros would be the one who decide who needs to be segregated. And it's funny that they are all Democrats, because basically it's segregation 2.0 or 3.0. You know, who made all those rules in the 40s and 50s to keep people segregated in some states of the Union? And that's exactly what they are doing under pretense of doing something else. So you have cultural appropriation, you have false CRT because they're actually not enforcing what they are preaching, and then you have segregation. And this is very ugly things. I mean, this is, you know, we just celebrated Martin Luther King birthday, and, you know, he was talking about something totally different, where his children would not be held to the color of their skin, but to the content of their character. And they are doing exactly the opposite. Now, maybe she got confused when she heard MLK scream, "Keep hope alive, keep hope alive." Maybe she thought he was talking about her. But, you know, that doesn't excuse Iran. She should apologize. She should have the decency to apologize, right? And the pro-independence should be unequivocally condemning that type of attitude, because when they are silent, they agree with what she did and what she said. That's the way I look at it.
Well, I agree, and that's why I told Paul what happened at that rally wasn't about him at all. The results would have been the same if Paul Zerzan had walked up to her and said, "Good afternoon, Miss Cristobal," she'd have tore, and people that are, so bogged down with an agenda like that can't really deal with anything other than their agenda. And that appears to be Hope Cristobal. After all, she was the author of the decolonization statute, right?
Yeah. Well, you judge a book by its cover. That's an old saying, but it's very true.
Yeah. Okay, Francie. Well, thanks for calling in.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. All right. Bye-bye.
All right, let's see. We got somebody else trying to get into the green room here, and I got another Joe hanging on. I may put another Joe behind because he's already ridden on the Ferris wheel once. Let me see who the new caller is. It's Bill. Bill. Does Bill want to talk about? No, doesn't want to talk about anything, huh?
He just wants to know if he gets to keep his passports if we become independent.
Of course. Yeah. Unless he wants to go down to one of Michael Bavacqua's rallies and burn it in protest.
Be a lot less uglier than the bra burning incidents.
That's true. All right, well, let's go and see what another Joe wants to talk about decolonization and Black Lives Matter. But another Joe, let's go to Churchill Downs first, okay?
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Tori tempo gagi hami isla tanota Magnatsum hiri tempo I vecino itingo West Attic na banco sa Bank Exhibition Bank Pacific I Ocean Bahamas Happy Holly
Okay, so here we are, Churchill Downs. I've got about 2 furlongs more until I reach the finish line in today's race. And I've got another Joe who's over in the paddock saddling up to ride to the finish line with me. So let's do it, another Joe.
Yeah, Bob, I apologize. Initially, I was trying to remember, I forgot, and I was going to comment that I think they need to defund any DOE, Department of Education, woke policies that the parents feel are too woke. But having said that, because that was earlier before the halftime show, regarding the Black Lives Matter, what was it that Jose characterized it as? Something versus Black Lives Matter.
Decolonization versus Black Lives Matter?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So here's the thing. You know me, Uncle Bob. I have an unfortunate habit of having dissenters advocate. We won't say the other version of that because he has no place in the show. We're pro-Christian here. So regarding Hope Cristobal, obviously, what's his name, Mr. Pete called and he mentioned something. He says that guy pushed her buttons and got her to make, and then there's her response in audio, and it made me think. Okay, so there are other issues, and I was thinking back to I think that point in time where Black Lives Matters. They even had someone come out here to Guam, And let's not forget that the people, the founders or the movement leaders of Black Lives Matters were in line with at the very least socialist Marxists. I don't know how closely they're aligned with communists and, for that matter, anarchists. But I'll tell you what, their movement has been hijacked already by anarchists, because last time I checked, there was a bunch of cities burning at the quote-unquote mostly peaceful protests because of the Black Lives Matters bringing to attention the George Floyd issue, I think. I believe that's the context. And so, and then they had those individuals with that movement come out here to Guam, and if my memory is accurate, there was a gentleman, African-American gentleman, came out here and criticizing local Chamorros for mistreating COFA, the habitual COFA migrants. You know, that's not the national category. That's not the national way that they characterize them, but they're migrants from COFA countries, and they're habitually arriving. And so apparently, this gentleman, African-American gentleman, came out to Guam and said, hey, you know, you Chamorros are bad because you're mistreating COFA residents, which got my attention. Hey, who the heck how long have you been in Guam? Who the heck are you? What do you know about what's happening out here? And are you in support of, I'll tell you what, I'm supporting COFA residents. I think their governments need to be sent the bill to help. Uncle Bob, if you are a COFA citizen and you're living homeless in the street, are you a resident or are you homeless?
Well, remember that the folks from the freely associated states are habitual residents, and they're supposed to be here to either work, go to school, or for medical care, not be laying around in the street.
So they need help by their countries. We need to address that issue. And this Black Lives Matter, someone needs to look up that audio video because it's been a while since I've seen it, and showing the Black Lives Matter representative criticizing local. So in that sense, if that's part of what got pushed Hope Cristobal's buttons, I can't understand. But this critical race theory that she's supportive of, and demonizing all whites, you know, with all due respect, if there's any possibility that I respect Ms. Cristobal, my elders don't agree with you, and so let's just simmer down now, be calm and be more appropriate about this, because you're one of the older leaders, and you are influencing the younger generation, millennials and younger, and they don't have a point of reference, and they're confused. So we need to address this issue. And but I mean, I don't know if I could say I give her that much, but I don't know. I'm not a migrant. I don't know what she experienced, but we need to address that Black Lives Matters. If they're saying, "Oh, it was hijacked," no, my friend, my brother, I think it's already been hijacked by communists, socialists, possibly anarchists with their own agenda, which is probably atheistic if they're communists. They're aligned with communists. So anyway, thanks for your time, Kabab. Let's keep listening.
Okay, another Joe. Yeah, so it doesn't matter. Another Joe can always bring the conversation around to compact impact, Eddie. Yeah. You know,
that's an incredible ability.
It is. It really is. Yeah. We should appoint him our special negotiator to negotiate compact impact.
But did you notice how artfully he said COFA and not compact impact?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. A man of 1,000 different words. Yeah. Very good, another Joe. Okay, so we got about 4 more minutes to go. I didn't finish my rant about the Department of Education. I'll come back to that tomorrow. And we've got a lot more work to do on the whole separatist thing, Hope Cristobal. I'm not going to play the Hope screen test again tomorrow, but I'm going to spend a lot of time talking on it, and so that people understand that what's really at issue here is whether Guam should become an independent country. And the reason that Hope is so angry because it's not happening fast enough for her. She wants to get completely rid of the United States and anybody that we would identify as, quote, American, like Paul Zerzan. So let me just close through the Facebook comments here and see what people are talking about today till the end of the show. Let's see. I've got... Jose Martinez, maybe if they weren't Canadians, I guess talking about the big motorcade in Canada.
The big convoy,
Yeah.
Oh, you know what'd be interesting is Ishmael brought up in the comments that question I posed to before the program started about a 50-50 split in the Senate if Kamala Harris does.
Yeah, I saw
get
that.
nominated.
Let me take a crack at that. The question is, let's say that Joe Biden appoints Kamala Harris, nominates her to the Supreme Court, and the nomination goes to the Senate, and it's a 50-50 tie in the Senate. Joe Biden appointing her is probably not so, is kind of far-fetched, but the 50-50 tie, no, that's very possible because there are 50 Democrats and 50 Republicans. So the question then becomes, could Kamala Harris, as the vice president, break the tie? And my answer to that question is no. And I'm going to direct you to the part of the Constitution that I think speaks to that. Take me just a second here. Yeah, it's Article 2, Section 1, about 5 paragraphs in. Section 2, Paragraph 2, talking about the president. He shall have power, by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, to make treaties, provided 2/3 of the senators present concur, and he shall nominate by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, shall appoint ambassadors, other public ministers, consuls, judges of the Supreme Court, and all other officers of the United States. President nominates, sends it to the Senate, Senate confirms. Is Kamala Harris a senator? No.
Not even when she sits as the tiebreaker.
Not even when she sits as the tiebreaker. So if we're talking about procedural votes, votes on statute, etc., but not on any of these that are mentioned in Section 2. If for instance, well, it couldn't be, you wouldn't need a tiebreaker on a treaty because it requires a supermajority, but on these other appointments, no. However, my research suggests that it has happened and nobody objected. So I suppose it is possible, but good question, a very good, intelligent tailgater question. That's it for today's show. We'll see you tomorrow, and let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Waiting for a name. I'm Paul Stevens, Fox News. Members of the Senate are waiting to see who President Biden will nominate to succeed retiring Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. Mr. Biden's campaign promise to name an African-American woman isn't sitting well with some in Washington. Maine Republican Senator Susan Collins.
I believe that diversity benefits the Supreme Court, but the way that the president has handled this nomination has been clumsy at best. It adds to the further perception that the court is a political institution like Congress when it is not supposed to be.
Senator Collins on ABC's This Week. Another missile launch by North Korea. This time it was an intermediate-range ballistic missile capable of reaching the U.S. territory of Guam. Sunday's launch viewed as Pyongyang's most significant launch in 5 years. While Russia appears poised to invade Ukraine, the U.S. threatens to hit Moscow with economic sanctions. Wyoming Republican Senator John Barrasso says those sanctions should be immediate.
We need to sanction Russia before an invasion, not afterwards. And here's the reason. Let's put this into perspective. Vladimir Putin is like the big bad wolf. He is huffing and he is puffing, and he has the capacity basically to blow Ukraine down. He's accountable to no one, and he views our President Joe Biden as weak and ineffective. We need to put in sanctions now so Putin will see just what pain he will suffer if he does invade, and they have to hit him militarily as well as economically.
Senator Barrasso on Fox's Sunday Morning Futures with Maria Bartiromo. Massachusetts, the snowfall champion from Saturday's big winter nor'easter. The Bay State got hammered by wind gusts hitting 70 miles an hour and plenty of snow. Boston tying its single-day snowfall mark at 23.6 inches. America is listening to Fox News.
The Fox Weather app is changing the way you think about weather.
Welcome to a whole new world.